The air in the cemetery is thick with rain and rot. Two figures dig in silence. Their shovels bite through wet earth, striking wood. A coffin. One kneels, prying at the lid until it groans open. Inside lies a young woman, wrapped in linen. Her face is pale beneath the moonlight. They don't search for rings or coins. It's her they want, the silent machinery beneath her skin. A dog barks. A light flickers in a nearby cottage. The men freeze. In the eyes of God, they are defilers. But in their own, they are pioneers. In the heart of the Renaissance, to learn the secrets of life, you had to steal from the dead. In Italy in the late 1400s, in Florence, Padua, Bologna, the air hums with invention. Architects build domes that touch heaven. Artists make saints breathe. Thinkers rediscover ancient knowledge. Humanity is waking up, but one frontier remains unexplored: the human body. For over 1,000 years, medicine bowed to the authority of one man, Galen, a Roman physician from the 2nd century. His writings were treated as gospel. Students memorized his anatomy as divine truth. To question Galen was to question nature itself. There was just one problem. Galen had almost never dissected a human body. Roman law forbade it. His anatomy came from pigs and monkeys. Brilliant work, but based on guesswork. By the Renaissance, scholars began to notice cracks in the old map of the human body. They had a dangerous idea. To understand life, humanity, the human body, you had to look inside one. You had to open one up. A popular myth blames the Catholic Church for forbidding dissection. It's not true. In 1300, Pope Boniface VIII issued a decree, De Sepulturis. It banned the boiling of corpses to transport bones back from the Crusades. It said nothing about anatomy. In fact, the Church often sanctioned dissection. In Bologna, Mondino de Liuzzi performed public autopsies under church supervision. Ecclesiastical courts sometimes supplied the bodies of executed criminals to university anatomy masters. Even popes funded hospitals where anatomy could be studied. The real obstacle wasn't religion, it was supply. The law allowed only one source of cadavers: executed criminals, a handful of bodies for thousands of students and artists. So, the desperate began to dig. In 1319, 4 students in Bologna were caught stealing a corpse from a cemetery for their anatomy master. They were prosecuted, but they wouldn't be the last. 2 centuries later, a young Belgian named Andreas Vesalius would lead the new age of anatomy. As a student in Paris, he found the old system absurd. Professors reading Galen aloud, while barbers sliced corpses they barely understood. Vesalius wanted to see truth, not recite it. He haunted charnel houses and gibbets on the outskirts of Paris. At Montfaucon, where criminals' bodies hung rotting in chains, he fought off stray dogs to collect bones. He smuggled them back to his room and built skeletons piece by piece. Later, as a professor at Padua, he pushed further. He bribed judges to schedule executions around his lectures. When that failed, he and his students dug up the newly dead. They forged keys to tombs. They stripped the skin from corpses to keep them anonymous. Vesalius confessed it all. "What I have learned," he said, "I have learned with my own hands." In 1543, he published De Humani Corporis Fabrica, on the fabric of the human body. 7 volumes, hundreds of precise woodcuts drawn from direct observation. For the first time in over a millennium, anatomy was based on fact, not faith. Medicine was reborn, but Vesalius was only the beginning. By the mid-1500s, dissection had become spectacle. Temporary wooden theatres sprang up in town squares. Crowds paid admission to watch a man be cut open. In Padua's Anatomy Theatre, the first permanent one, built in 1594, hundreds leaned over the galleries to peer down at the opened body of a criminal. The anatomist stood center stage, part scientist, part performer. With each incision, he revealed the hidden clockwork of the human machine. Audiences gasped as he lifted a lung or traced the curve of a vein. It was grotesque, yes, but it was also wonder. This hunger for knowledge had a cost. Legal bodies were too few. Demand exploded. Students began raiding funeral processions, seizing coffins from grieving families. Professional resurrection men emerged, criminals who sold stolen corpses to universities. They dug by moonlight, using wooden shovels to muffle sound, iron hooks to pull bodies from coffins without lifting the lids. The dead became currency in the trade for truth. While anatomists cut for science, artists began cutting for beauty. One of the first was Antonio Pollaiuolo, a Florentine painter and sculptor. His engraving Battle of the Nude Men shows 10 warriors with every tendon exposed. Giorgio Vasari wrote that Pollaiuolo flayed many bodies to study muscles. He wanted not holiness, but realism. Pollaiuolo's work marked a turning point. For the first time, the artist and the anatomist shared the same subject, the human body as a landscape of truth. Then came Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo saw the body as a divine machine, an engineering marvel. Over his life, he dissected about 30 corpses, perhaps 20 in one winter at Pavia. He dissected the elderly, the diseased, even infants, always in pursuit of understanding. One day, he sat beside a man over 100 years old as he peacefully died. Afterward, Leonardo opened his body and discovered the hardening of arteries, what we now call arteriosclerosis. His notebooks are breathtaking: hearts, lungs, muscles, bones, and a fetus curled in the womb. The drawings are precise and tender, art and science fused. But his work drew suspicion. In Rome, a jealous rival accused him of sacrilege. The Pope banned him from dissecting again. Leonardo turned back to painting, but part of his genius had been sealed away in the morgue. Michelangelo Buonarroti followed the same shadowed path. At 17, grieving the death of his patron Lorenzo de' Medici, Lorenzo the Magnificent, Michelangelo found refuge in Florence's monastery of Santo Spirito. In exchange for carving a wooden crucifix, he was given access to the hospital morgue. At night, alone by candlelight, he dissected the unclaimed dead, beggars, paupers, the nameless. He used his sculptor's tools to trace how muscles clung to bone, how flesh folded around form. That knowledge lives inside his art, the taut muscle of David, the twisting bodies of the Last Judgment, the red cloak around God in the creation of Adam in the shape of the human brain. But the work came at a price. The smell, the blood, the stillness. It began to sicken him. He destroyed his drawings, unable to face them. He had looked too long into death and found it staring back. Others walked the same morbid path, scalpel in hand. Baccio Bandinelli dissected to impress patrons, boasting that he could cut the brain and also living men. For artists, anatomical knowledge became a mark of genius. This convergence of art and anatomy reshaped the Renaissance. Artists borrowed the precision of surgeons. Surgeons borrowed the sensitivity of artists. Together, they made the human body visible again, accurate, expressive, alive. Before Vesalius and Leonardo, medicine was a guessing game. Doctors bled patients to balance humours. They treated fevers with purges, wounds with superstition. Disease was seen as punishment, not pathology. By cutting into the body, these pioneers replaced myth with measurement. They showed that knowledge could be carved from flesh, that truth was not divine revelation, but human discovery. Yet the world around them wasn't ready to follow. Many still saw dissection as desecration. In towns across Europe, people whispered that anatomists trafficked with the devil, or that corpses rose from the slab to curse their defilers. Some students fainted mid-lesson, others vomited or fled. But the work continued. Curiosity was stronger than fear. After Vesalius came Realdo Colombo, his successor in Padua. Colombo confirmed the flow of blood through the lungs, pulmonary circulation. He even collaborated with Michelangelo on an anatomy book, though it was never finished. Colombo's lectures drew enormous crowds, including priests and cardinals. Dissection had become public theatre, and the Church did not stop it. Pope Sixtus IV personally authorized the use of criminals' bodies for study. Faith and science, far from being enemies, often shared the same table. Still, scarcity and secrecy endured. As the centuries turned, the problem only grew. In England and beyond, resurrection men made fortunes supplying medical schools. Graveyards became guarded fortresses. Laws were eventually rewritten. By the 19th century, body donation replaced grave robbery. The darkness finally gave way to consent. But every lawful dissection today still traces its lineage to those first stolen corpses. Out of the mud and moonlight, a new world was born. Vesalius's Fabrica dismantled Galen's thousand-year reign. Colombo charted the blood's journey through the lungs. Leonardo and Michelangelo gave flesh its truth in line and marble. Together they dragged both medicine and art out of the Middle Ages. Every medical student who opens a cadaver, every surgeon who operates, every artist who sketches the curve of a muscle, all stand on their shoulders. The Renaissance remade the world, but not by keeping it clean. Progress came from the macabre, from those who turned darkness into beauty and the forbidden into truth. It was never pure. The Renaissance was built on defiance. We admire David, the Sistine Chapel, and Da Vinci's inventive genius, and our lives are reliant on modern medicine. But we rarely see the cold, dark rooms where it all began. The stolen bodies, the candlelight, the hands of those who dared to open the human mystery. They sought the truth of life in the silence of the dead, and changed the world forever. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I did making it. Subscribe for more stories from the shadows of history, and check out my recent video about Caravaggio, an artist shaped by the darkness within him. Thank you.